Imagine for a second that top-tier digital creation, I mean expansive video games, and absolutely breathtaking animation, weren't just locked behind massive corporate budgets anymore. What if the tools to create cinematic visuals and complex code were literally just sitting there, completely open for anyone to use? Well, you don't have to imagine it, because that reality is here right now. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a total game changer in the open-source AI world, MoonShot's Kimi K3.
So let's just dive right into this. Listen to this quote from user Chris GBT. I think it perfectly captures the absolute shockwave that's rippling through the creative community right now. He says, the era of free indie game development is closer than you think. And he hit the nail on the head. We're looking at a new open source AI that is fundamentally disrupting the landscape for digital creators. We're not talking about some minor software update here. This is a foundational shift in what indie developers, animators, and researchers can pull off straight from their laptops.
Now, to really grasp why Kimi K3 is making such massive waves, you just have to look at this staggering number right here, 2.8 trillion. Kimi K3 is actually the very first open-source model to hit 2.8 trillion parameters. That is a massive, unprecedented leap in accessible computing power. For the last year or so, Moonshot has been relentlessly pushing the upper limits of open model sizes, and reaching nearly 3 trillion parameters, it basically proves that this kind of massive scaling isn't just an exclusive club for closed-door labs anymore.
But how does all that scale actually translate into real performance? Well, check out this comparison table. Kimi K3 isn't just playing catch-up here, it's actively surpassing top closed-source Western labs like Anthropic and OpenAI in some seriously rigorous coding and complex agentic tasks. It's taking first place in front-end code. It's totally dominating the SW marathon. In fact, when pitted head-to-head on the exact same tasks, Kimi K3 was chosen as the better model 76% of the time against its top competitors. This completely shatters that old assumption that open-source models are just doomed to be 6 to 12 months behind forever. So you're probably wondering, how on earth did they achieve this? It basically comes down to a highly efficient architecture called a mixture of experts, or MoE. Under the hood, Kimi K3 contains an astounding 896 different expert networks. But here's the absolutely crucial part. For any given task, it only activates the 16 most relevant experts. So instead of firing up the whole massive engine for a simple question, it routes the problem directly to the specialists. When you combine that routing mechanic with new innovations like Kimi Delta Attention, you get a 2.5 times improvement in scaling efficiency over its predecessor, Kimi K2. It's just getting way more intelligence out of the exact same amount of compute. And this brilliantly illustrates why all of that efficiency actually matters for you and me. If we look at the average cost per intelligence task, Kimi K3 sits at just 94 cents. Compare that to Opus over there at $1.80, it's practically half the price for frontier-level intelligence. That means you can finally afford top-tier AI without constantly hitting rate limits or feeling like you need to take out a second mortgage. It's cheap, it's incredibly smart, and it is entirely accessible.
Section 1. Building procedural 3D worlds.
All right, let's step into the creative playground and see how this translates to real-world applications. Imagine yourself using these tools to single-handedly generate expansive, fully functional video games. The versatility we're seeing is honestly mind-bending. Creators are already using Kimi K3 to build fully procedural 3JS open worlds, complete with dynamic weather and snowy mountains. One user even got it to build a functioning Game Boy Advance emulator. But I think the most visually impressive one is this browser-based cyberpunk web-swinging experience. The AI didn't just write basic code for this. It engineered 120 frames per second web-swinging traversal mechanics, complete with semi-implicit pendulum physics and energy-conserving rope constraints. No way, right? And the craziest part is it doesn't stop at just generating the initial code. Kimi K3 acts like a tireless developer. For instance, when creating a voxel Roman Colosseum and a wuxia martial arts RPG, the model iteratively self-improved the environments over 20 rounds. How? By using headless Chrome to autonomously take screenshots of its own game, inspect those screenshots, detect visual bugs, and then fix them. It's literally looking at the game it built to polish the gameplay, completely on its own. It's essentially a tireless QA tester that never needs a coffee break.
Section 2. Mastering Motion and Animation.
Now, if you've ever wondered how you could create a video with the kind of animation that instantly attracts an audience and serves as a real inspiration to viewers, this is the revolution you've been waiting for. Usually, making high-quality explainers requires a whole team, but let's break down Kimi's native process. Step 1. It understands text, image, and video natively, so no clunky, chained-together systems are required.
Step 2, it generates animated motion graphics, effortlessly translating technical ideas into beautiful 3 blue 1 brown style visual animations. And step 3, just like with the video games, it actually watches its own output to self-correct visual errors. So as a creator, you can produce highly polished, captivating animations all driven by a single AI.
And the level of visual fidelity it strives for is just awe-inspiring. One user actually had Kimi K3 recreate the cinematic gargantua black hole from the movie Interstellar. It didn't just take a wild guess. The AI generated the visualization, reviewed it, and then corrected it through 62 self-diagnosed screenshots. It basically acted as its own incredibly meticulous art director to ensure the final output was visually stunning. This is exactly the kind of breathtaking animation that stops viewers mid-scroll, pulls them right into your world, and becomes an incredible source of inspiration.
It's worth mentioning that Kimi's agentic capabilities even extend to full-on video editing. The model was tasked with autonomously editing assets, and it seamlessly compiled 52 different clips and sound effects into a captivating, highly polished teaser trailer entirely on its own. If you want to create a video that deeply connects with your audience, having an AI that natively understands pacing, sound design, and visual storytelling is just an absolute superpower.
Section 3. Agentic Research in Complex Workflows. Let's transition from pure creative art to hardcore computational research for a second, because these exact same autonomous capabilities apply remarkably well to analyzing massive data sets. Just take a look at the jaw-dropping efficiency detailed in this table. When tasked with a gravitational wave analysis workflow, Kimi K3 processed 391 events, cross-validated over 20 scientific papers, evaluated over 300 equations, and generated more than 3,000 lines of Python code. It even built interactive HTML dashboards to explore the results, and it did all of this in just 2 hours. To put that into perspective, that's enough work to fill 1 to 2 weeks of manual effort by an experienced human researcher. It's essentially a senior researcher working at absolute lightning speed.
Now, it is important we look at the full picture impartially here. As shown in this comparison, we have a very valid community critique from a user named Eduardo. He points out that while Kimi K3 absolutely excels at generating fresh visual coding, beautiful HTML dashboards, and UI work, it can occasionally struggle when you drop it into deep, pre-existing complex code bases. For example, when asked to trace a deeply embedded bug, Kimi sort of hallucinated some explanations, whereas closed-source rivals like Fable5 and GPT-5.6 were able to zero in and one-shot the fix. So while it's undeniably a creative powerhouse, there are still specific enterprise software engineering tasks where the closed-source giants definitely hold an edge.
Section 4. The future of open-source AI.
Zooming out a bit, the arrival of a nearly 3 trillion parameter open model is triggering a pretty intense geopolitical shakeup. The question right here is the exact dilemma facing regulators today. How do you put an export block on an open source model? You see, when top-tier AI models are released by Western labs, they undergo strict governmental cybersecurity checks, testing for things like hacking capabilities. Interestingly, Kimi K3's benchmark release is notably missing a CyberGym score, which is the exact metric used to measure those cyber risks. Naturally, this missing data point has sparked some tension and debate about whether it was intentional, and more importantly, how governments might even attempt to regulate open-source models of this unprecedented caliber going forward. The landscape is literally shifting beneath our feet.
Which leaves us with this final, thrilling question: what will you build in this new era of accessible, frontier-level AI? We are looking at a highly capable, incredibly cost-effective creative powerhouse that can animate, code, research, and self-correct. The barriers to entry for creating stunning visual worlds, indie games, and complex research dashboards have quite literally never been lower. The tools are here. The open source revolution is accelerating. So how will you use these tools to create a video into the animation that could attract an audience and become a kind of inspiration to your viewers? Think about it, and we'll see you in the next explainer.